Good afternoon, members. Welcome to PNR Part 1, the Bristol Airport application. Before we move on to the agenda, can I remind everyone that we are streaming today's meeting live on the internet. Cameras will focus on members' debate and public viewing areas are not being filmed. Members of the public are able to record proceedings discreetly from a fixed single position with no additional lighting, focusing only on councillors and officers. So, returning to the agenda, Part 1, Item 1, Public Speaking. We have just one speaker, Hilary Byrne, who is speaking against the proposal. And you have 3 minutes.
I am speaking on behalf of many people and groups today. Parishes, communities, Extinction Rebellion local groups, and Stop Bristol Airport expansion. Many of us aren't attending due to the virus. We congratulate the North Somerset councillors on their decision to reject the airport's expansion plans and trust that you will ratify the decision today. We would like to make 3 points. Firstly, the Heathrow Court of Appeal decision on the 27th of February was made after the refusal of the Bristol Airport application. The Heathrow decision now needs to be taken into consideration at this meeting today and be recorded in the reasons for refusal. This is important because the current Climate Change Act budget for the 100% reduction of carbon by 2050 does not cover aviation emissions, but the Heathrow ruling took a different view. We are asking you to include reference to this ruling and the Paris Agreement, which is now legally binding, to ensure that any inquiry will need to consider the latest commitments to net zero emissions. Secondly, we ask that today's ratification refers to all 7 broad areas of policy which were cited as reasons for refusal on February 10th. These are impacts on the community from additional growth, exaggerated level of economic benefits, the climate emergency, the adverse impacts on wildlife habitats, absence of strong case for the use of the green belt, reliance on cars to reach the airport, leading to unacceptable levels of traffic and congestion. The ratification of all these points allows a full examination at the time of an inquiry, if that happens. Thirdly, we now have 2 crises, a climate emergency and the coronavirus. We believe that the coronavirus will radically change the aviation sector, and not just in the short term. Business travel will fall as video conferencing becomes increasingly familiar, reducing costs and saving time. Demand for leisure flights will take considerable time to get back to the levels previously seen in 2018. The airport already has permission to expand to 10 million, which allows for a further expansion in passenger growth of 1 million, predicted to be reached in mid-2021. Due to the virus and the likelihood of a recession, 10 million passengers may be reached far later than previously anticipated. Further growth at Bristol Airport is simply not needed. The committee has reached the right decision in refusing the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, apologies for absence.
Apologies have been received from Councillors Caroline Cherry, Peter Crew, John Crockford-Hawley, Kieran Connolly, Sandra Hearn, Ruth Jacobs, Stuart McQuillan, Robert Payne, Timothy Snedden and David Shopland, and we have substitutions, John Cato for Timothy Snedden, Mark Crosby for Robert Payne, Don Davis for Sandra Hearn, Karen Havison for Stuart McQuillan, James Tonkin for Caroline Cherry, and Richard Tucker for Kieran Connolly.
Thank you. Item 3, declaration of disclosable pecuniary interests. None? Item 4, minutes of the 10th and 19th of February. Members confirm they are correct record? Thank you. Item 5, matters referred by Council, the Exec and other committees. There are none. Item 6, application 18/P/5118/OUT, outline planning application at Bristol Airport. A Section 1 application may turn into committee. Richard Kent.
Thanks, Chairman. I won't go into too much detail because this was all debated at the meeting on the 10th of February. You'll see that the reasons for refusal that the committee based its objections on are set out both in the minutes and in the report that we've published for today's meeting, together with some commentary on those. As the Chairman said, the item was held over from the last meeting because the committee's decision was contrary to the officer recommendation, and that recommendation is as still set out in the report today. In terms of the committee's reasons for refusal, you'll see from the report that was published for this meeting that there are a number of comments that we have made. So, for example, for reason 1, we've identified that the reference to Vision 1 of the core strategy, for example, is probably not appropriate because it's not policy in itself, whereas policy CS23 is relevant. Similarly, under reason 2, we've made some further comments there about the relevance of the policies, and again under reason 3. Reason 5, you'll see, and that's the ecological objection, you'll see that we have pointed out that neither the Council's consultant nor Natural England would support an objection based on that. They are satisfied that the relevant tests are met. And we have again, for reason 6, identified some points about policy wording. And again, in reason 7, made reference to the MPPF tests and how those relate to policy, and in particular, highlighting that the transport assessment that came out with the application didn't support a conclusion that an increase in traffic volumes, congestion or parking on local roads would have a severe impact in terms of the MPPF. So, Chairman, those are the comments on what the committee said previously. We've also, on the update sheet, got a number of things to point out. You'll have seen that we've had further correspondence from the Parish Council's Airport Association and from solicitors acting on behalf of Bristol Airport. And we briefly summarise what that letter says, and I believe that has also been copied to members. But, Chairman, on that basis, the application is recommended for approval as per the officer recommendation, but taking into account what the committee said previously.
Thank you. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, here we are again. I just want to be clear that we're here to ratify a decision that we've taken as a council. So on February the 10th, we met and we debated at length the merits or otherwise of this planning application, and we reached a pretty resounding decision, I think, about whether approval should be granted or not, and we reached a very conclusive and quite historic decision for the council that we should refuse permission. Nothing has changed. There's no new reasoning, no new rationale, no new evidence that has come to light in the intervening weeks since we took that decision. All we've had is quite a threatening and quite poor quality letter that came from the airport after close of business yesterday. So being given sort of 6 or 7 weeks to respond, the CEO of Bristol Airport chose to wait until the close of business yesterday before serving a rather threateningly worded letter, which I've read and makes no difference at all to the decision that we took in February. I note the officer's report for this meeting, note the comments that have been given on the reasons for refusal, and I do appreciate some of the time that officers have spent in taking legal advice on some of those reasons as well. So we don't need to go over the reasons. I will say that I was quite disappointed as a new councillor at the last session. The quality of debate from some of the members who chose to approve the application I felt was really, really poor. And I kind of, as somebody with 20 years experience in business, would have expected much better. So I think that's something that I wanted to say at the outset. So the particular points that I'd like to note in the officer's report, reasons 1 and 2, I agree, could be combined into a single reason based on policy CS23. Reason 3 should make reference to policy CS3. I should also explain that reference to emissions in this reason relates to significant air quality impacts. Note also that the Council's ecological consultant and Natural England are satisfied that the impact on ecology can be fully mitigated, and so therefore reason 5 may on reflection be hard to defend, and somebody talked about this not being a make-weight argument. It's not a question of trying to throw every conceivable reason at it. What we want is the strongest possible set of reasons for refusal. That the policy referenced in reason 6 on Greenbelt should be amended, and whilst in reason 7 the expansion would clearly be unsustainable in transport terms, the evidence suggests it would be difficult to sustain a traffic-based objection given the advice in the NPPF. So taking those comments on board, I would therefore like to move refusal for the following slightly amended and I believe therefore stronger reasons, taking into account what Richard Kent has said and also on the legal advice. So reason 1, the airport has planning permission to expand to a throughput of 10 million passengers per annum, which allows for further expansion in passenger growth of approximately 1 million passengers per annum above the current passenger level. The further expansion beyond 10 million now proposed would generate additional noise, traffic and off-airport car parking, resulting in adverse environmental impacts on communities surrounding Bristol Airport, and which would have an adverse impact on inadequate surface access infrastructure. The claimed economic benefits arising from the proposal would not outweigh the environmental harm caused by the development, contrary to policy CS23 of the North Somerset Core Strategy 2017. That's reason 1. Reason 2, the noise and impact on air quality generated by the increase in aircraft movements, and in particular the proposed lifting of seasonal restrictions on night flights, would have a significant adverse impact on the health and well-being of residents in local communities, and the proposed development would not contribute to improving the health and well-being of the local population, contrary to policies CS3, CS23 and CS26 of the North Somerset Core Strategy 2017. That's reason 2. Reason 3, the scale of greenhouse gas emissions generated by the proposed increase in passenger numbers would not reduce carbon emissions and would not contribute to the transition to a low carbon future, and would exacerbate climate change contrary to the National Planning Policy Framework, policy CS1 of the North Somerset Core Strategy 2017, and the duty in the Climate Change Act 2008 as amended to ensure that the net UK carbon account for the year 2050 is at least 100% lower than the 1990 baseline. That's reason 3. Reason 4, the proposed extension to the Silver Zone car park and the year-round use of the seasonal car park constitute inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, which is by definition harmful to the Greenbelt. There are no very special circumstances which outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt caused by reason of inappropriateness, and any other harm, including the encroachment of development on the countryside and loss of openness, contrary to the National Planning Policy Framework and Policy DM12 of the Development Management Policy Sites and Policies Plan, Part 1, 2016. That's reason 4. And finally, reason 5, the proposed public transport provision is inadequate and will not sufficiently reduce the reliance on the car to access the airport, resulting in an unsustainable development contrary to the National Planning Policy Framework and policies CS1 and CS10 of the North Somerset Core Strategy 2017. So that's all of the reasons. I mean, last time I was really hoping that we'd have a unanimous vote against this proposal, and we did quite well with 18-7. I think what I've laid out is well thought through, justified arguments using core strategy and policy frameworks that demonstrate why we should be refusing this application, as I did on February the 10th. And so I'm looking for somebody to second that motion to refuse.
Councillor Bridger. Councillor Hall, can I clarify? Do you wish to have a name vote or the vote by
Beg
show
your
of
pardon,
hands?
yes. I would actually like a named vote, please, if that's possible. Thank you.
In which case, by a show of hands...
Can we be clear, though, because we almost got off on a false premise here, didn't we, last time? Can we just be clear on what we're voting for when people say for or against?
Okay.
Yeah.
So does the council have 4 other members' support for a name vote? That's clearly carried. Okay. Suba, do you want to explain the procedure? Well, it's going to be a name vote. Yeah.
Does anybody want to say anything?
No debate.
No.
No debates.
Just to clarify, there's no debate. We're happy to go to the name vote.
So if we're voting for refusal. Yeah.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I'm delighted at long last, for the many weeks that have gone by, that I've actually got from Councillor Hogg what the reason for a refusal are. They seem quite good. But let's go a stage further. I still think and still say, and I've checked up, we're going to lose. And that will put a huge burden on this authority, whether you like it or not.
Councillor Brown.
Unless something changes.
Karen, this is not new information. We had that information at the last meeting on the 10th. So unless you've got new information.
Well, the new information, Chairman, I'll tell you what, because I'm so incensed with this, because this is a planning meeting, that I'll offer everybody here, my fellow colleagues, councillors, odds of 100 to 1, give me £1 and you're on for £100 should you win. I will take that bet, okay? And if I end up with a load of coins, I'll give it to a local charity, or who knows, give it to North Somerset to offset this huge bill. Thank you.
Councillor Westwood, is this new information?
Well, I suppose it is, yes, Chairman. Because I made the point at the last meeting that one of the MPs for the area was at that point sitting on the fence. He's changed his position now. He's joined the future, shall we say, and is opposing this proposal for expansion, along with the other MP for the area. So that's new news. Thank you.
No other comments? In which case, Sue, can you clarify the procedure, please?
Yes, Chairman.
Sorry, there was a comment from Councillor Gibbons.
Quickly.
It's just a very quick comment that, in light of everything that's going on with the global crisis and the coronavirus, I think that when this goes away, we will be living in a very different world. And I don't think that an expansion of an airport at that point will actually be right. So our decision may well have done the airport a favour in preventing them from investing in something that would be redundant by the time we come out of this crisis.
Right.
Thank you, Chairman. I will read the councillors' names in alphabetical order, and I will be asking them to confirm whether they are voting for the refusal reasons that Councillor Hogg has set out, or against the refusal reasons, or whether they are abstaining. Councillor Bird.
For refusal.
Councillor Bridger.
For refusal.
Councillor Bryant. Councillor Butte. Councillor Cartman.
For refusal.
Councillor Cato.
For refusal.
Councillor Cole.
For.
Councillor Crosby.
For refusal.
Councillor Davies.
For refusal.
Councillor Gardner.
For refusal.
Councillor Gibbons.
For refusal.
Councillor Harley. Councillor Havison. Councillor Hitchins.
Abstain.
Councillor Hogg.
For refusal.
Councillor Keating. For refusal. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
For refusal.
Councillor Petty. Councillor Porter. Councillor Solomon. Councillor Tonking.
For refusal.
Councillor Tucker. And Councillor Westwood.
For refusal.
Chairman.
Right. 18-4, 2 against, and 3 abstentions. The application is refused. So that concludes PNR Part 1. A short adjournment until 3:15 when we resume with Part 2. Thank you.